مساء الخير. Welcome everybody. We have an English-speaking guest with us, so the talk is going to be in English. Today we have with us Grant Gibson, who's going to be moderating this panel. He's the editor of Craft Magazine, UK. We also have Annalise Devet, which is the founder of Amman Design, which we've been collaborating with early September on a program. We also have Diane Shephers, I'm trying to pronounce this as, which is the founder of Pure Felt, and she's also collaborating with the Princess Taghreed Foundation on their joint initiative, Pure Felt. And last but not least, we have Fayrouz Taqi-Din, which is a director of strategic partnership and development from the Jordan River Foundation. I'm gonna hand over to Grant, and thanks.
Thank you, Haya. That's very kind. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate it. I know there's a lot on when you agree to do these things. You're never sure if anybody's going to turn up, but here you are. Thank you. As most of you probably don't know, Crafts is a magazine that's published by the Crafts Council in the UK, and it investigates the importance and power of making in areas such as art, in industry, in science, technology, and society. And it's that last element that we're going to be drawing on today. I mean, I'm delighted to be here and chairing this talk because it seems to me that three organisations we have represented on the stage today are using craft to empower under-resourced communities, and they're going to tell us how. The format, just so you know, before we get going, the format of the next hour is our three speakers are going to have 7 minutes each to introduce both themselves and their work. I'm going to be ruthless with those 7 minutes, by the way, speakers. I will let you know, and as soon as 7 minutes are up, I will cut you off. I'm sorry, but I'm harsh like that. But before we get going, I'd like to play this little game to discover who we have in the crowd, so the speakers know who it is they're talking to. Can I ask, do we have craftsmen and makers in the audience if you raise your hand? Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Anyone? Okay, designers in the audience. Raise of hands, show of hands, we've got a few. Architects? Hey, we've got one. A very proud architect as well, which is good to see. I don't know. People who have come from Dubai on a kind of curatorial mission. I'm not looking at anybody in particular. Thank you very much. And, I don't know, parents of one of the speakers perhaps, raise your hands. There we are, there we are. So we're a mixed bunch. Good to see you all here. Okay, so I'm going to say as little as possible today. I'm keen to get you guys asking these people questions. I think that's kind of the point. I don't see myself as a moderator, more as a kind of conduit. So after each person has done their 7 minutes, I will ask a few questions, but then I'm going to come into the audience a bit like, I don't suppose, do you get Jerry Springer here? Has anybody heard of Jerry Springer? Oh, one, but two, right, a little bit, yeah, you're American, you must have, a little bit like Jerry Springer for the people that know him. And then I want some questions from you guys, so I need for you to be thinking about things you need to ask the speakers while they're talking. I am going to be quiet now, and I'm going to hand over to our first speaker, who is Fayrouz. Fayrouz, the stage is very much yours.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for participating in today's session on Crafts Moves Community. My name is Fayrouz Taqi-Din, and I'm the Director of Fundraising and Partnership at Jordan River Foundation. Just a quick brief and background on Jordan River Foundation. It's a not-for-profit organization. It's one of the largest local nonprofit organizations in Jordan, established 22 years ago in 1995 by Her Majesty Queen Rania. And the mission of Jordan River Foundation is to create prosperous opportunities for communities in Jordan and looking at homegrown solutions to addressing development challenges that the country faces, from poverty to unemployment to youth participation, gender equity, while focusing on the well-being of our children. So child safety and protections are core areas of the programs that Jordan River Foundation focuses. Our two programmatic approach today is community empowerment work and child safety protection. Now let me zoom in on our community empowerment work, because that's where our crafts and handicrafts work comes to play. What we do is we work with community members, with men, women, and young people to lift them out of poverty and increase their livelihood situation. Now, marginalized women and marginalized youth, usually they are behind when it comes to employment opportunities or economic empowerment opportunities. So 22 years ago, that's how Jordan River Foundation started. It started by focusing on lifting women out of poverty and giving them livelihood opportunities, and it did so through handicrafts. We wanted to create income-generating opportunities for women through the space of handicraft while preserving our culture and traditions. So it started with the Beni Hamida carpets, which some of you may be familiar with, 22 years ago. So it trained these women on skill sets they didn't have. It gave them job opportunities that's flexible for them to work out of their home and to create income. 22 years forward, I'm proud to say that our Jordan River design is still vibrant, and it's creating products that are relevant for our consumers today, that are for real people, but yet has a social impact. We are still moving towards empathetic design. And I am happy to announce that just recently, and some of you may have read it, we just established a very global, large-scale collaboration with IKEA Group. So Jordan River Design today is going to be producing for IKEA. We are actually IKEA supplier. We just passed all the IWAY and the IMES compliance of IKEA, while keeping true to our genesis. So again, we're going to be an IKEA supplier producing empathetic design product that employs women, that trains women, that creates entrepreneurship opportunities for these women in the space of artisan. But what's also more exciting is that this collaboration with the business group of IKEA, it's also going to integrate refugees. So we are working with IKEA Group on fulfilling the Jordan Compact plan of this country, turning the refugee crisis into a development opportunity. So we're going to be employing refugee women, but at the same time creating more job opportunities to Jordanian women. So this is really exciting. We're looking at a 4-year partnership. Please visit the IKEA store. Products will be available for sales in December of this year. So very, very exciting. I just want to highlight something for all of you to know is that the artisan sector and the space, maybe some of you don't know, is the second largest employer in the world for women in developing country. What is the first industry? Is agriculture. So I think for those who are working in development space and who really want to empower women, we are onto something. Data shows that the artisan sector creates jobs, creates employment, and empowers women. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Is that it? You're done? Two slides and you're only 4 minutes. That's remarkable. Normally when I set people a 7-minute limit, they go miles over and I'm like, stop, but 4 minutes. Brilliant.
Well,
Top of the class.
I could talk more. That's great. But I'll leave more space for questions and answers. That's that
okay.
part.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Annalise, I think you're up next. Do you want this microphone?
My name is Annalise de Vet. I have a background in design. My home base is now Belgium, but I'm Dutch. And 6 years ago, I founded, together with Palestinian friends, the design label, inclusive design label, Disarming Design from Palestine. And Disarming Design from Palestine is a contemporary label that designs, develops, produces, and distributes designs made in Palestine that can tell something about what does it mean to currently live in Palestine, or what does it mean to be Palestinian. And then we managed in the past 6 years, every year, to organize a workshop. In the beginning, in collaboration with the International Academy of Arts in Ramallah. Afterwards, we established ourselves as a non-profit company in Palestine. And this year, we had a collaboration on the invitation of the Amman Design Week with the Gaza camp in Jarash, where we worked with the artisans in Gaza camp. And we visited the camp with 4 Jordanian designers, 3 Palestinian designers, and 4 Dutch designers. And through this workshop, we try to understand the reality of the artisans and of the camp. And with the designers, we look at what are they doing, what are their skills, what are their resources, and how can we develop products that they can make with the available resources, but that can tell something about their identity and can tell something about the complex reality that they are living in. So we have now an existing collection of products, and this year, last month, we designed 9 more products, and those products are taken in production, and they're available on some places in Palestine and mostly online on a website. And now we're starting to have more places where we sell them. And at this moment, we opened last night. We have an exhibition in the lab of Darat Al Fanoun, showing the collection of products and showing the results of the workshop that we organized. And I can show a few products. Maybe Haya, could you go one slide back? So this is Beyond First Impression. It's a ceramic bowl designed by Khadir Dayani, and if it's closed, it's completely white on the outside. And for her, it reflects the idea that once you go to Palestine, you don't see yet the beauty, or the reality is very gray, and you don't. You don't realize what's going on. But the moment you come close, the beauty unveils itself, and that happens with this bowl. The next one is the checkpoint brush, and it's designed by Vida Daher, and the designer also from Jerusalem. And for her, she crosses a checkpoint often at Kalandia, and she's very annoyed by the fact that the checkpoint is very dirty and her shoes always get dusty. So she made this brush so she can take off the dust, but also remove the memory. And then the brush is made in the Blind People Association in the Old City of Jerusalem. The wood is pine wood from the West Bank. Then there's typography on it, and that's done in a print shop in Ramallah. And then the leather bag, which is Palestinian leather, and that's made by an artisan in Hebron. So we really try to work with artisans in all different places, and they're often in quite marginalized positions. And right now we work with many people in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem, and also in Gaza. 2 years ago we organized a workshop in Gaza Strip, and we developed products there with artists from Gaza and artisans in Gaza. For instance, this one is made in Gaza. It's the Awakening goggles. I thought I'd bring one. And it's made in Khan Yunis, in the open studio of the Red Crescent Hospital, and it's the eyes of the artisan. So they made photos of their eyes. We translated it to embroidery patterns, and it's the women themselves that embroider actually their own eyes. But they cannot look outside Gaza, and this way their eyes can travel, but when we look through their eyes, we see nothing. And so also the mask kind of touches upon the idea of the reality of like the conflict that is taking place, and a lot of people, particularly in the West, not seeing what is taking place, and it's in hiding. And this mask is trying to indirectly touch upon that complexity. So the next wait, I have another one. This is a vicious circle, and it has it's a security tower and a security wall, and it's a spinning top. It works very well, but I put a label on it, so I think it doesn't work now. A bit. And it's from olive wood and made in Bet Sahur. And the designer is Abdullah, I forgot his family name. And what he wants to address with this object is the idea that like the more security you put in a society, the more security you will need. So this huge amount of security is also a vicious circle that is taking place. So now we have quite a collection. This is one that came out last month, and this is made in the Gaza camp in Jarash. And it shows, it's an origami folded back, and inside there's hidden embroidery, and it's called Unfilled Souls. And it was made by Mariam Soukri, a Jordanian fashion designer, and Kusai. And he's a Palestinian designer and founder of Origami Palestine. And together with the artisans in the camp, they made this, and it reflects on their experience that the moment they meet the artisans, they see a little bit and they're a bit shy, but the moment they get to know them better, they understand their skills, their reality, and their hidden beauties. And with this bag, they try to tell this story of the hidden souls, and particularly in the camp, where all the people don't want to be. I mean, they want to have normal citizenship, they want to go back to Palestine. And so there's such a longing, and there's so many hidden beauties and emotions, and that's what this bag is reflecting upon. So this is designed 4 weeks ago, and now the artisans in the camp are able to make it themselves with the Women Artisan Center and a tailor in the camp. And then, briefly, so we have a non-profit company in Ramallah And we have a web shop. But then, if you have a Palestinian bank account, there's no way you can accept international payments, for instance, or one of the difficulties that you're facing. So we have a Dutch foundation. Actually, everything is being sold through the Dutch foundation. And then it's bought from the non-profit company in Ramallah, and we have a warehouse in Belgium, and we ship everything from Belgium. So like the whole organization is constantly looking like what is possible within this impossible reality, and how, and particularly as designers, where you can see things can find solutions where the reality doesn't really show solutions. And we try to figure out how can we address it, or how can we find ways to still do it. And then we have exhibitions and places where we show these products, and on this way our biggest aim is to really spread other narratives about Palestine, to understand more, and I like the term empathetic designs, also in a way to create empathy, or to create understanding, or human stories on a cultural level that you can relate to. So that's disarming design from Palestine.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I don't mind. I mean, you went slightly over 7 minutes 20 seconds, but you know, Farouz gave you time. Yeah, Diane, you've got ages now. You can take 10 minutes if you like. The floor is yours to do with what you want.
The floor.
Yeah.
Hi everybody. I'm Diane Schepers, also from the Netherlands, but living in Switzerland and spending a lot of time in this wonderful country. Since I've met the wonderful people of the Princess Tagrit Institute. It's a foundation that steps up for orphans that have to leave the orphanage at the age of 18, girls at the age of 18, not married, nowhere to go. So Princess Tagrit founded the foundation, offers vocational training center, and also has an apartment building, which I find it's creating a home for these girls. This is where it started. That is with Purefeld Jordan. My journey started earlier by setting up a foundation called Purefeld, the Art of Empowerment, and we started in South Africa. And the essence of what we are doing is there's a lot of overlap with what you're doing, what in terms of design, in terms of the impact we're looking for, the women empowerment. But I think one thing we have very different is that we only work with wool and felt. So we have one medium only. It's a very time-intense process, but very simple at the same time. So we work the sheep you just saw. That's the local Jordanian Awassi sheep, one of the oldest breeds in the world. And we use these wools. And because these wools are in the countryside, we decided to involve also women in Fefa, one of the poorest areas in the country, near the Dead Sea. I still can't pronounce it. Roch. Thank you. I keep on trying. So I travel there regularly. And these women, it's a community of 18 women we have engaged in our program, and we have set up a studio for them. And they are basically preparing the wool from scratch. So big bags of wool come in, and they are building their relationships with the sheep herders. And they card it, they dye it. We train trainers. They were taught how to dye with natural colors, and they produce basically all the wools that are being used in the art projects in Amman mainly. But in the meantime, we have developed interaction between the two groups. So we have a young group of girls between the age of 18 and let's say 30 in Amman. And then we have a group of older women between the age of 43 and 73 in Fefa. And they teach each other different things. The older women teach them how to weave and to spin goat hair, whereas the girls in Amman teach the ladies how to felt a most beautiful bowl. So like the top one, the left on the second on the left, these are cat houses made of pure felt. So we have two arms. We have the products, which is their micro business products, which is their sustainability. Small products, we attach their names to it, and on the website you can find their name and see their story and see whose life you can impact. The second arm is big wall pieces, big wall art pieces. I'm the designer for these art pieces, and we co-create them. So Fefa produces the wools, dyes them, and in Amman and Fefa we actually felt. We just opened our exhibition in the National Gallery of Fine Arts, so if you have the time, please be welcome. There we have all the commissioned pieces. So we have started 1.5 years ago, obtained 8 large art commissions from major banks and corporates, and tomorrow we are going to show them what came out of that journey through this exhibition at the National Gallery of Arts. So this is one simple example of the many things you can make out of felt, and that is one of the things we try to accomplish, is to show the world which impact you can have with a simple material as felt. It's just water, soap, your hands, and the wool that is usually thrown away. So, and at this moment we are employing 26 women on a permanent basis.
Very good. Thank you, Diane. Thank you. What I thought we might do, panel, now is move our chairs a bit closer together, because it's kind of difficult to have a panel discussion when you're miles apart. And then what I thought I'd do is I would ask a few questions, but I'm really keen to get you guys involved, because that's kind of why you're here, and you're likely to have more interesting questions than I am, I suspect. However, I would like to just start. I mean, Farouz, I think we need to unpack, you'll get the pun, this IKEA project. I mean, what are you coming up with? Loads of flat pack products, or what products are you going to have in these IKEA stores, and how did this come about, this relationship?
So it took us about a year from the time we met IKEA for the first time to where we are today. Actually, just last week we had the IKEA CEO visiting the production center, looking at prototype products that are going to be up for sales in December. But it was a long journey. It wasn't easy because there was a lot of dialogue involved, we co-created the products together. So they flew their designers worked with our designers. But what was very important for us, I mean, don't forget, we're a not-for-profit, we're not a business, but we are planning to transform this development project into a social enterprise.
But IKEA definitely are for profit, so I wonder how that relationship works.
No, so basically there was an alignment from the start. IKEA came in with the intention of doing good. They wanted to take the business, what they have offering, and looking at a business model that meets development objectives. They said, we always say this in the development world, what role do the private sector play in addressing large-scale development problems? I mean, we have development problems of unemployment. We have development problems of women's participation in the workforce. This is a role the private sector needs to play while working and partnering with nonprofit organizations that ourselves that understands the local need of communities today and now. So one of the things we were talking about, one of their compliance, I'll just give you an example, was all products cannot be made home because the fear of child labor, right? IKEA has this IWA must compliance, no child labor at all in their products. We had to assure them that they will, we also ourselves follow the no child labor in all our products that are made home. But if we were to lose the flexibility of women working out of home, we will lose half of our workforce, and especially if they want to employ refugees. So that took a lot of dialogue. That took for them to go visit our women home-based workers, our freelancers, and then they saw, and talking to other players like UNHCR, and them supporting our argument. So coming to your question of the products that we're going to be creating with IKEA, we have 3 main product lines at Jordan River Design. It started with the carpets, the Bani Hamida carpets, so it's from wool. Then we have the basket line, which is Wadi Finan, using the banana leaves to make baskets, so the basket line. And then we have the handicraft Jordan River Design line, which is more the embroidery, the stitching, the household items. After them visiting all our product lines, they decided to go into the 2 product lines and co-create IKEA JRF design products, which is the Bani Hamida carpets and the design, the Jordan River embroidery line. And so some of the products we're going to be creating are beautiful pillows. I'll give you, one of the pillows is actually a photo that the IKEA designer took of a cactus plant outside of the home of one of our home-based workers. And she took the cactus and they're gonna put tassels on them. So the women are making the tassels, putting it on this black and white. It's just beautiful. You see the IKEA look and feel, which is simplicity and everyday design, with the Jordanian local touch of embroidery or a stitch or the eyes of a Bedouin woman. So you'll see the products.
But can you kind of mass produce these on a scale that a company like IKEA would expect? How does that work?
So we're doing a phased approach, right? So we're looking at, and it's the economy of scale. And so IKEA is holding our hand in the process. We're not the first social enterprise or social initiative of IKEA. IKEA has similar programs and partnerships in India and in Thailand, and we're the first Middle Eastern country that they partner with. So we're going to start with producing 50,000 units from certain product lines from now until June next year. And in the next 4 years, they have sales production, and they'll just double that and quadruple that slowly with us. And the objective is to employ 200 women in the process of our partnership. So 50 Jordanian employed women and 50 Syrian refugee or refugees in general women.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. You guys, you've all been personally in your presentations incredibly modest, I think. I'm quite keen to know a bit about the background and also for the crowd here. Your background, I mean, Diane, I'm interested in why felt in the first place for you, and then why did you decide to turn it into something else?
Well, you won't believe it, but I'm actually a trained lawyer. And 11 years ago, I got in contact through a workshop with felt. And that is where my life changed, basically. So I started doing workshops. From day one, had the vision that it needed to be big wall pieces. And that's where it began. And 2 years later, I was represented in a couple of galleries, one of which in Cape Town. And there we developed jointly a social program, a CSR program, and we included 34 kids in the townships. And that's where everything fell together for me. So basically, then I stopped almost producing myself, creating art myself, because my entire extra time, in addition to my legal work time, went into these projects. And then I got introduced to Princess Rajwa of the royal family here, and she said, well, the Princess Margaret Institute needs to pick this up. And since then, basically felt is my other half. It's my creative side, it's my other brain half.
So you're still a practicing lawyer at the same time?
Also, yes.
Right, interesting.
Yes.
What kind of law, I wonder?
M&A, investment. I'm general counsel in a big company, yeah.
Very good. Annalise, I'm interested in... I was talking to some people I know who have set up a business importing products from Afghanistan. And they were telling me that finding a designer to work with the makers is quite tricky because the makers kind of like to do their own thing. The designers, by nature, tend to be quite controlling. And they want to produce. And makers, obviously, it's a slower process. And so I'm wondering what the relationship in your project was like and whether you had to choose your designers quite carefully.
No, I think like the example that you give sounds like it's designers from outside Afghanistan flying into Afghanistan and working with local craftsmen. And I think that's it's not necessarily problematic, but I think it's much harder to really engage or to really understand each other. So when we organize our workshop, there's always a majority of local designers, and they understand the reality of the artisans, and they're often family from artisans, or they understand, and that kind of is also a safe safe net for the international designers so the local designers are also a bridge for the international designers to relate, sometimes to literally translate, but also more emotionally translate or to understand the reality that they are working in. And also we try not to constantly try to work with the given reality and not try to kind of bring your idea and execute it, but really try to exchange and to try to understand how does the artisan work and who is the artisan.
Well, I'm quite intrigued by that because when you brought the small group of designers over that you did, what were their expectations? Were they surprised? And how did they respond in ways you were not anticipating, I wonder?
Well, there's one designer here that participated in the workshop, Aya. Maybe she can tell more directly.
Yeah, why don't I come over? We're interacting.
Okay. well, from my experience, it was a bit. It's not about like controlling things. I know most of the designer would control and try to implement their ideas. I think that is the point that we're talking about now. But through the workshop, we try to make connection with them. So this is the thing that gave us the how to call it, the right to engage, how to call it, like to give them the space maybe, and to the privacy to speak of their stories. So you have to make conversation with them, you have to try to make friendship with them. I think most of the designers till now are still speaking with their artisans in the camp, and I'm one of them. We still have like connection. So this is, I think, the way to make things easier. It's a bit hard maybe for them or for me or for any designers who's coming from outside to make a connection, but it would come by time and stories.
And I think it's also important that we always had lunch together, we were hiking in the forest together. So we were trying to organize like also side effects in the workshop, and sometimes those moments are most important to engage more on the human level. Like, well, the first day where we came in, the designers were really shy. The artisans, they were really shy, and it was really hard to connect. But then every day they opened up more, and that's also a bit like the story of the bag. Like that, it's kind of every day there was more to see and to get to know, and also more motivation to make. So we try to design things that in a way, it's maybe the idea or the trigger of the designer, but it's also the story and the voice of the artisan. So they also feel that the product that they make is also amplifying their voice and amplifying their identity. And I think that's what we look for, that they feel an inner motivation to make the things that we ask them to make.
Annelies, can I ask how you got involved in this in the first instance? What took you to this part of the world and doing this kind of work, I wonder?
It's a long story, but I try to keep it really short. But I think my background is graphic design. And then in 2007, there was someone from a Dutch NGO. She contacted me, and I was a teacher, and she asked, well, could you do something with the image of Palestine in the Netherlands and maybe make Christmas cards? And I thought that's a really stupid proposal to make Christmas cards about Palestine. But the question made me realize that I had no clue. That I had no clue what was taking place actually, and that I always kind of thought, hey, that's a conflict that is too complex for me to understand. And that was the first time I realized that was what I was thinking, and that was a reason to do much more research in like what is actually taking place and what's the history of Palestine. And then I proposed to make a subjective atlas of Palestine, where it's the Palestinians who made their own image of Palestine. And that happened, that took place. So I organized a workshop in Ramallah together with Khalid Hourani, who was at that time the director of the International Academy of Arts Palestine. And he invited like 30 Palestinian artists, and we asked them, like, can you map Palestine according to your own experience or your own story? And that happened, and then that came together and the book was published. But for me, that was the first time being there, and that was really overwhelming. At one side, like, to see the reality and to understand that we let this happen, and on the other side, that me being Dutch and being European, and that our political systems maintain this situation. So in that sense, that I also have a personal responsibility as a Dutch/European citizen. And I can't change politics, but I can contribute to the debate, or can contribute to the ways of thinking as a designer, and I feel that's my ability or my field as a designer. And then I was particularly triggered in Palestine to see these creative practices, like to decide to become an artist in Palestine is so different than decide to become an artist in the Netherlands. And then in such a politicized environment that everything you do, even if you say, I just want to make something aesthetic, it becomes political. So that triggered me a lot in thinking about the position of design in conflicted environments. And then 6 years ago, the same NGO came to me and said, can't you do something with products from Palestine? And then I said, let's start a design label. And then it's all unveiled.
Very good. I am in the audience now. I feel like we're one. So if anybody has any questions, do feel free. Oh, hello. Okay. If you could let us know who you are and where you're from. Obviously, I know who you are and where you're from, but it's being filmed, and I think it'd be nice. Okay.
Hi, I'm Lena with Amman Design Week. I'm one of the organizing team. Hello. I just had a question about I didn't hear any of you guys mention a fair price wage system for the workers. And this is something that I think needs to be criticized in the crafts. I'm not criticizing any of your initiatives, but it's just a question that I'm curious how fair wages are ensured to all of the artisans and designers, and so that it's not something like, oh, we're gonna, take your skills, we're gonna make beautiful products, and then we're gonna take the profits. I know it's non-profit organizations, but I'm curious logistically how that works out, in given the different situations and countries. And thank you.
Okay.
That's a very good question. That's the kind of question I wish I'd asked. Who wants to take that? Firuz, do you want that first?
I don't know let's say how can I say, the logistics background of the wages and the paychecks, etc., because I'm not in that department. But what I know is that Jordan River Foundation, for our employees that work for Jordan River Designs, we ensure that minimum wage is met. But actually, the reason we have women working for us more than 22 years is that we do pay above minimum wage, so women are making fairly income. I can talk about success stories. I can talk about some of these women that they're the sole income provider of their families. They've actually sent their children to school, and they bought a home, which is amazing. And I can talk about the woman who I met about a month ago, who's a Syrian refugee who worked with us 5 years ago as a home-based worker. So they're like freelancers, and they get by the hour, right? And so the more she produces, so she sets her own kind of target to meet the wages that she wants. She told me how she's able to support her family in Turkey that's, divided. So I know that, Jordan River ensures that it meets the minimum wage requirement and, fair, the 8 hours, and abides by labor laws. And for all our employees who are part of Jordan River Foundation, we also ensure social security, health benefits, etc. And now when it comes to the IKEA supply chain, that we're going to become an IKEA supplier, it is going to be on, wages system, insurance, social security, making sure they get the holistic benefit package approach. Yeah.
Okay. Diane, do you want to pick up that point?
I think the first year we wanted to start in a way where everybody had the opportunity to learn without the pressure of the deliverables and be paid by the piece and the kind of thing. So over the past year, we have really paid them all on a permanent salary. So they're full-time employed, and that means, yes, it's also based on the normal salaries. The Gora Fefa in particular is an agricultural area with a lot of unemployment outside of the agricultural season. So we follow these salaries basically as the common salary. What I wanted to stress is that because of the fact that they are permanently employed, and there is the flexibility of a sixth child and family circumstances, and the entire working rhythm here is completely different from Europe, I found. And I think in that regard, people are extremely happy in our team, not only because they have found a purpose, they have found the dignity to have their own income. Their roles, and actually linking to what you said, their roles in the families are changing already in relatively short period.
Okay, Annelies, do you want to? Is this something that you deal with where you are?
No, there's one thing I could add. What I think is important is that when the making process is as transparent as possible, then also it's less there's less risk involved. Like the more you hide who's making it or how's it being made, the more risk there is. And I think that's something important. So we always include the name of the artisan. We try to film the artisan making it, and really try to explain the whole production process. And that also creates more understanding with the one who buys it, and is also more willing to pay more to understand where things coming from.
Can I ask quickly about the markets? And do you guys have to export? I mean, obviously you're going to be exporting with IKEA. But is there an internal market in Jordan that can provide an income for these people, or do you need to be selling abroad? That's going to Diane, or is it? Pass the microphone.
Go back again.
Okay.
So for us, we have the two lines, as I said before. We have the art commissions, which are where we are focusing on Jordan, big corporates, banks, and individuals. On the products, yes, we will export. We basically have a focus on the Jordanian market. It's a bit different, a bit more embroidery, whereas the European market likes the Scandinavian style more, if I may say so. So quite pure and simple designs. So those products, yes, we do export.
Farouz, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, so for us, predominantly it was the Jordanian market, but then in the last couple of years, we've been participating in regional exhibition, large-scale crafts and artisan exhibitions, which have been successful for us in the region. And then we built relationships with artisans and designers across the region. We actually create products for them. So we've done that, but IKEA is going to be our biggest, access to global markets. So we're going to do IKEA, but the other exciting thing we're about to do is we're launching an e-commerce website. So people actually can purchase products online and then we'll start shipping. So that's in the works.
And what is the importance of craft to the Jordanian economy, I wonder, as somebody from the West? Because I'm hearing obviously there's loads of interesting work going on, but I'm also hearing glass blowing is under pressure, and much as they are in the UK and probably across Europe as well. So I'm wondering how important craft is to the nation.
That's
No, I thought she might want to answer your question. Do you have his previous question?
Well, let's go with this one.
I mean, crafts plays, I think, in any society. It tells the story about the culture. It preserves heritage and culture. I mean, that's how we started, is preserving Bani Hamida. But throughout the year we realized that, okay, we need to give it a modernized touch. It needs to be to the tastes of the consumers, and to develop that conscious consumers, it has to also apply to the needs of modern day. I think there is still a significant appetite for the products that we do. We did see a change in our sales and a more consumer appeal to our products a couple of years ago when we brought a designer with the vision and image of promoting Jordan, but in a very modern display, like taking black and white photos of, the local heritage and sites of Jordan, Petra, and putting them on beautiful pillows and embroidering some of the columns, So I think it's the designer thinking and being very artistic to it. I think there is a space for that. Now, going to the international market, I'll give you an example. We're going to be participating, let's say, at TED Women. You have to know your consumer base. Who are you going? You're going to the United States, understand what are their interests. Maybe there will be more interest in the nude colors and the natural colors. Look at similar industry, what they're saying and what they're selling, but make sure you have that story. People love to buy products, quality products. I think that's the most important thing. We're not selling trinkets here. We're selling products that meet consumer needs. We need to think from a business lens, but that tells the story of these women. So you need to combine the two.
That's quite interesting, because Annalise, you make a big point about your products being useful. This is something you've mentioned several times when we've talked in the past, and I'm wondering, why you place the emphasis on that word in particular.
Well, there's two things. Like the usefulness is also that for us it's important that you relate to the product and to the story, so that you use it. You really create a relationship even with your body. You carry it, you touch it, you hold it, you bring it in your house, and it becomes a story. Someone asks for it, so that's very important. So I think also we don't want to create more waste, and we want to make conscious things. And so the moment things are very useful, there's a reason for them to exist.
Very good. Guys, we have about 10 minutes left. I'm really keen to get you involved. We've had the difficult first question. I'm wondering if anybody wants to ask the distinctly less tricky second question. No? Oh, go on. Otherwise, I'm going to bully somebody. I'm just going to pick on them. Anyone? I'm going to turn around. No? Okay. Well, let's talk a bit about your take on this, because you kind of do both, Diane, don't you? Some of your products are useful and some of them are distinctly art-based. And I'm wondering how you came up with that model. With the model of? Well, that you have a distinction between kind of art products and, kind of functional design products, should we say.
The thing is, firstly, I like to do what I like. So that's where it started, in all fairness. It started in South Africa in the townships. And there we started with large artworks. Large art commissions, as a matter of fact, 6 stories of felt in one of the buildings of the largest insurance company. And we saw how that could employ people, how it could motivate people, how it could empower them. And it improved their employability altogether. So that was the starting point. Equally, it has some complications because large artworks, not everybody has a place for them. The market is smaller. Equally, once you have a commission, the amount is so much higher that it's worth the effort. So we felt we need to have both in order, and also it's this sense of pride. I don't know how you experience it, but pride to me is an extremely important word in the community. People are so proud to be part of this, are proud of what they produce, are proud to link their names to it. And we wanted it to make it accessible for them. A small product which they master is making them proud, and we can connect their name to that one product, which is impossible with the big art pieces. The beauty of it is that it's really a community job, because if you see our artworks in the museum now, it's about 10 people at least that work on one piece. So I started with the artworks because that is where I came from and where my passion is. And the interior design products we added for the pride and the micro-business element of the participants.
Very good. I'm near the back of the audience now. Does anybody have a question they want to ask? While you have this panel, I'm getting shakes of the head, wry smiles. I'm not speaking to a microphone. Any questions? Yes. If you can let us know who you are, that's great.
I'm Isabel. I'm from the Netherlands. And I was wondering, because you all speak about using craft in a modern way, which kind of implies also modernizing heritage. So I was wondering how the local people kind of reflect on this modernized heritage that you create in a way.
Who wants to pick that up? Bruce, do you want that?
So I'll give you an example of the Bani Hamida carpets, right? I mean, it's a traditional way of weaving that, emerged. It was done generations ago, taught by, the grandmothers, passing it on to their daughters, etc. So we are preserving the way of the weaving, the style and the methods of the weaving. But before, Bani Hamida carpets were large carpets, really high price range. Okay, so today, while we're still preserving the way of making the weaving of Bani Hamida and the way it's made, but we're looking at more practical products. So it's diversification of the products, right? And we're looking at also merging different styles. So we're taking actually weaving a Bani Hamida, the wool, and we're putting them into a shape of a basket with a ceramic in the bottom. So by combining two different techniques, all of a sudden you have a fruit basket or you have a basket. So we're actually looking at diversifying the way we do product lines so we can have more sales and appetites from the consumer while preserving. The same thing with embroidery and the stitching. It's the same, 2 stitches, 3 stitches. I'm not a designer, so I don't know the technical terms, but we are still teaching them, but we are still talking about the story from where these women are coming from, etc. Like this theme, if you go see, we do have a Jordan, I'm going to plug in, we have a Jordan River design, stand right over here, so please visit it. But this year's theme and product theme is talking about, the olive tree and what does it mean for these people and their communities and their livelihood, and the olive oil story, and talking about the hands, and pomegranates. So we do try to talk about our stories through practical products, modern day talk, like pillowcases, things that you can use, but that has a beautiful touch, and then it will automatically connect you to that product. But if you're doing a product that's really old looking and colors and design, you'll buy it once, but you won't renew it,
Annalise, pitfalls of contemporizing heritage, I wonder.
Well, I think what's important to realize about crafts and heritage is not something historical to be revived. It's something, and it's also not something just about production or something just about economy or empowerment. It's really about the community, or about like where the resources come from. How big is the workshop? The workshop is as big as the family is to support the family. It doesn't need to have a huge production. So crafts you don't learn from a booklet. You learn it through generations. You learn through regions. Every region has its own ways of expressing, and I think it's really important to understand that we have less and less local production, and by activating the crafts you don't just kind of activate history, but you really invest in community building on a much larger scale, and understanding like who are you or who are we, where are we from, how do we connect to a place, how do we connect to each other, and through the crafts there's a lot of connections to be made, and I think that's also a responsibility by reviving, perhaps not reviving history, but really I think there's a need in contemporary design in society where we're losing knowledge of material, knowledge of relationships, knowledge of a place, and through the crafts it really activates this knowledge and thinking about it.
Guys, any more questions? Oh yes, I'm coming over to you. We're on a roll now, I can distinctly feel it.
I think what you just said is very, very important, and I think a lot of the designers, if there's anybody in the audience that is a designer, would like to hear your advice in terms of how they can also begin to work with craftspeople, to what level of participation they should expect, and what is the best way to involve a craftsperson in the design without obviously, that bad way of working with craftspeople where they think I'm the mind and you're the hands and you should do what I tell you. So if you have any advice, I think designers would like to hear that.
Yeah, the key word that comes into my mind immediately when I hear that question is the word play. And I think play is so extremely important in the entire process, and we take a lot of time for playing. And in all fairness, sometimes, yes, it is the palm trees and the camels. And that's fine. That's fine. We find other purposes for that. In all fairness, these camels are not in our product line. But what we do see, and that's the beauty after a year of intense training. Firstly, we have kept all the products that we started making in the beginning until now. It's a huge, huge progress and quality. And now you see that they feel confident, they see which products work, and they become creative. In all fairness, I can give you one example, and it's actually, I'm really in love with this product. So I taught them how to make a big ball out of massive wool. So it's very stiff wool, it's very solid, and they started making holes in it. So now we have basically a full ball, completely pierced with big holes, beautifully polished in wool, and that is our new product. And it didn't come from me. So this is, I think, the answer to it.
Annelies, do you quickly want to add anything to that?
Well, from a Palestinian point of view, I think it's really important to drink coffee and smoke cigarettes together. But really, I mean, it's you laugh on it, but real seriously, it's like, well, that's a funny cultural difference I understood between Jordan and Palestine. Like in Jordan, you get coffee on the end of your visit. It's a bit like, now it's the end. And in Palestine, you always immediately get served coffee. And then it's like, it's to be together on a human level and to be interested in each other and to ask questions or to figure out something and pay attention and not to come to someone and please execute my idea. And I think there needs to be kind of an exchange and a co-authorship.
Guys, we have about 2 minutes left. I've got time for one more last question if somebody has one. Yes.
I'm the mystery person. No, I'm Huda Abi Fares from the Khat Foundation. I have a question for you, Annelies. I find it very interesting that you bring designers from the Netherlands to be so immersed in a culture that is completely foreign, and maybe they have even negative preconceived ideas and they're scared and they think it's dangerous or whatever. And I'm curious, when the project ends and there's a product that is a kind of collaboration, how do they experience it, and how do they take this experience further into their own work later? I mean, as designers, do you have any stories on that?
Well, the international designers that participate are actually students from the Master of Design in the Sandberg Institute, where I'm head of that master. So they're my students that join, so I know them, and so that makes me that I can also prepare them and follow up on it. But for instance, in the first year, like 6 years ago, there were two students that immediately ordered a ticket to go back, and they made a whole documentary, and they came back 5 weeks. Another student did the same thing, Paulina Medvedeva, and she just made a whole documentary about informal economy. Then now there were Palestinians in the Netherlands, and then they're hosting them to stay in their houses. And what often happens is actually it's a huge impression, and then actually the big culture shock comes when they got back home, and then they realize the different realities, and then they also realize how family or friends talk about what they when they express their experiences, and then actually kind of maybe the real digestion of all the experiences take place. And also, and then they're my students, so I see them another year. But what we see is actually all the students that join the workshop, and then I hear it from the other tutors. They say, "Wow, they came back so much riper and so much more adult." So it really does something very deeply, and relationships stay, and some people come back later on.
Guys, our hour is up. Thank you so much for coming. And if you could thank Diane, Farouz and Annelies. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the fair.
Thank you, Grant.